Hello and welcome to the STEM Community webinar. My name is Tim Bradbury, your host, and today we are diving into one of the most exciting weeks in the STEM calendar, Tomorrow Engineers Week 2025. This year's theme is Dare to Discover, and it's a celebration of curiosity, creativity, and resilience. It's all about encouraging young people to experiment, follow their interests, and see how their passions connect to the world of engineering, while showing that engineering is about solving real-world challenges and shaping a better future. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr Hilary Leevers, Chief Executive of EngineeringUK, who's been leading efforts to inspire more young people into engineering and technology. And together we are going to unpack what Dare to Discover means in practice and how you as teachers can get involved and the free resources that are available to help bring engineering to life in your classrooms. So welcome, Dr Hilary Leevers. I would like to start off with a bit of a question around this year's theme, Dare to Discover. What does Dare to Discover mean to you, and why is that so important?
Hi, and thank you ever so much for the invitation to talk about tomorrow's Engineers Week. I think for me personally, it is about reframing what it means when things go wrong. So instead of thinking, oh no, it's gone wrong, that's dreadful, actually, oh, how interesting it's gone wrong. This is, it's given me a new thing to think about, a new thing to learn, a new problem to solve. And I think that that's something that I have gained throughout my life, and actually setting that as a scene and an approach that students can take young, I think is incredibly helpful, because it probably took me quite a long time to learn that. And it does give you a huge resilience to when things don't work out as you have planned. It isn't a disaster, it isn't a knockback, it's an opportunity. It's made things interesting again. So that's what it would mean to me personally, but actually it is so fundamental to engineering, which is all about curiosity and experimentation and learning through trial and error. And Dare to Discover is all about encouraging young people to try things out. And a lot of them, it might be ideas about how you do things, or actually career interests, or hands-on experimentation, and just not being afraid about getting things wrong. And it reflects the reality of engineering and the progress that comes from that sort of resilience and adaptation, and hopefully highlights some of the core skills that people don't necessarily associate with engineering as much, which are around problem solving and actually problem seeking, finding the problem to try and solve, and then the iteration that goes through the problem solving, and the creativity and coming up with a new idea to try to tweak something and get it working again.
Yeah, that's really important, and that real focus there on resilience. And I think in this current world that we're living in of instant gratification, and being able to find the answers immediately, by using the internet, by using AI and things like that, the actual process of getting knocked back and trying again and looking for a different approach is really important. And the light bulb wasn't invented the first time round. I forget, there's an anecdote for that somewhere about how many times it took to make a light bulb, but I can't remember what it is. My physics teacher used to tell me.
Apparently it's 10,000 times, and it wasn't a failure. It's just 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb, and here we found the way to make it. So there you go.
Exactly that. So moving on from that one then, engineering is built on trial and error. How can we help students see failure and resilience as part of discovery?
It is really just reframing failure. So it's an inevitable part of the pathway towards solution and that design and innovation process. And actually, even if you've got something working, you want to keep that iteration and improvement. So even if something works first time, what's the chances that it's optimized? And so failure isn't something not working first time isn't a great surprise, because even if it worked first time, that wouldn't be your ending point, as it were. And we've kind of been doing this through a whole range of ways, like sharing stories of engineers who have tested, things haven't worked as expected or worked at all, adapted and made breakthroughs. And, that example of the light bulb is a great one, and is about resilience and persistence and a real clarity of goal to get to. But I think it's also worth celebrating the unexpected solutions to other problems that you might have found along the way. And there's a lovely story as well in the resources about someone who was experimenting, an engineer who was experimenting with the use of metal coils to stabilize tables, and yeah, I think on the sea, so they aren't rocking around when the ship's in motion. And one of these coils fell off the table and kept moving and was the first slinky. And actually, I don't know if the problem was, oh, we need more fun things that can walk downstairs, but it certainly was a fantastic product that we all love, and it's actually having that opportunity to see things differently and leap on those opportunities as they arise. And sort of what we're trying to do with this work is encourage teachers to help students reconceptualize when things aren't working out and iterate and see it as low risk and really celebrate the opportunity to be curious and go, oh, why did that happen? Instead of, oh no, it's gone wrong. And you know, that there isn't a perfect solution, there isn't a binary correct and wrong answer to these things, that creativity. And I do think the persistence and resilience point, you know, your point about people looking for quick answers on the internet, but also I think just that emotional resilience as well. So it isn't just about keeping at something and having persistence of going at a problem for a long time, but actually not being knocked back, being okay when something which you might be trying to engineer isn't working out, but also, you know, wider in life when things aren't working out. Actually, well, that's interesting. It's something I can learn from. Maybe I try it a different way, etc.
Yeah, yeah, and that's such an important life skill as well to
Yeah.
take forward into into the world of work and careers, which is a perfect segue into our next question. Now, both our organisations, with STEM Learning and Engineering UK, have a lot to do with Gatsby, and I'm really happy to see the Gatsby benchmarks make an appearance here because it's a fantastic resource. And the Gatsby benchmarks remain really central to careers guidance. How does Tomorrow's Engineers Week and the resources that you provide for schools help meet the Gatsby benchmarks?
So we're really careful to make sure that everything that we're producing for schools has those clear links into the benchmarks, because they're inherently really useful, and so we should be doing it anyway, but we also know that it helps teachers to see that clearly and for them to be able to report for their schools on how they're meeting those benchmarks. So these resources are particularly designed around benchmark 4, linking curriculum content, curriculum learning to careers, and benchmark 5, encounters with employers and employees. And the way we'll do that, they've got loads of resources that will help with hands-on practical teaching activities that help students become resilient and adaptable problem solvers. We've got some engineering stories to showcase the many routes into engineering, so the different ways you can get into engineering and technology careers in support of the Gatsby benchmarks. Some video case studies, and also, as well as linking to Gatsby, we link to Skills Builder, which we know a lot of the schools use. And actually, we when we work with students and introduce, you know, Skills Builder items into what they're doing, a lot of the students recognize the skills there, and they're, you know, generalizable employability skills like communication and teamwork. And so we are clear when with students participating will also get those Skills Builder skills, as it were, giving lots of real life examples and practical resources. And then there'll also be the chance, and this is that link directly into employers and employees, for students to ask questions of a panel of experts in engineering and technology. And everything's all quite flexible, and we try to make it really easy. So there are lesson plans and assemblies, again, embedding the career learning across a range of subjects.
Fantastic. And you mentioned the sort of lesson plans and resources and films and things like that. How can educators use the new films and lesson plans practically in the classroom?
Yeah, so they can, they're quite nice short chunks, so you can actually work through them all. You can work through them all in sequence, or you can actually just take little chunks out. So we really design it that way. We know that teachers are time poor, not just in terms of their preparation time, so we make it with minimal prep, but actually may have different amounts of time that they can use the resources in lessons. They could be in assemblies, but also would fit well in PSHE, science, design and technology. And if you're lucky enough to have engineering in your school, in engineering as well. And as well as the lesson plans, there's some nice short films as well, just to spark a bit of discussion and linking in to topical issues, because actually, engineering and technology are so relevant to the challenges in the world, but also huge employment opportunities. So we're linking them across to things like climate change or AI. And really, one of the core things we're trying to convey to young people around climate change is obviously in the curriculum, they're taught a lot about what has happened and the impacts of climate change and things like biodiversity loss. But actually, we really want to make sure that they can see a more positive future. So talking about the engineering and technological solutions and mitigations and adaptations to climate change, and the careers that you can get into, that where we need hundreds of thousands more in those spaces. So just, I think they're really important educational tools, but actually, hopefully, making young people feel a bit more positive, and actually, some of them being enabled to go onto those pathways where we really need them to make those sorts of differences.
Yeah, I actually couldn't agree more there. I think there's a horrendous sort of climate of climate anxiety almost among groups of young people who are persistently seeing this negative side of climate change across the news, across social media, etc. And actually, while there are going to need to be changes that made to the way that we live, we have to do that. There is such positive, ways to look at it. Like as you say, careers of the future, and how engineering and science and all these fields are going to have to change. The world of green engineering and green sciences, green chemistry, etc., have never been so well funded and so fruitful. So yeah, I think.
And actually, I would say, I hope teachers will love getting involved in Tomorrow's Engineers Week and the style and quality of the resources. And if they do, then I would encourage them to take a look at our Climate Schools programme, which is a whole load of resources and support for lessons in science, geography, and English about climate change solutions, and just trying to not say that it isn't a really important and concerning thing, but actually be really clear about the opportunities that there are to improve the situation, and actually the opportunities that young people have to take careers in engineering and technology as a really positive, purposeful step to contribute to making that difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked there about the workforce of the future, and how that's going to change in the not too distant. What does that workforce look like to you at the moment? I mean, I know as an organisation, you've done an awful lot of work around diversity and inclusion. What kind of progress have you seen over the course of Tomorrow's Engineers Week? As it's run.
I would say variable progress is the best way to describe it. So we published some research last year. I think it was last year, maybe, yeah, it was last year, the Science Education Tracker, where we found a decline in girls' interest in science. We're really hoping that doesn't stick. It was, there are lots of things going on in 2023 when the survey was done. It's still coming out of pandemic, lots of various impacts. At the same time, this year in the results, we've seen an increase in girls' uptake in several of the STEM subjects, which I think are really positive. And those include the precursors to engineering and technology, as well as quite a significant increase in overall entrance to engineering degrees, 13% increase and 18% for young women. So we are making good progress. That's talking about gender, which is where there is the greatest unbalance between engineering and technology and the rest of the workforce. Although there are other underrepresented groups, UK minority, ethnic groups, people from poorer socioeconomic circumstances, people with special educational needs and disability, but they are kind of they're closer to the right levels of representation, which is why we do work across the board on inclusion, but have got a particular push for girls at the moment. And actually, we know that some of these narratives around the creativity and problem solving and purposefulness of engineering and technology land really well with those groups that are underrepresented. So really trying to make sure that they can see those aspects of things that they might bring in those roles is really important, as well as, of course, the role models, and getting a sense that there are many people like them in the workforce, but also they are so wanted in the workforce. And I cannot be more sincere than saying we work with hundreds of organizations, many corporates, and their desire to genuinely improve the diversity of their workforce is really, it's heartfelt. So it comes from an equity position, but also they need it. They need it from a numerical position. They need to be reaching as many people as they can, because we've got huge workforce needs coming with all the government investment in these areas. But also because they know it genuinely leads to better outcomes. And the flip side of that is, I would say to young people, actually, you want to be in this workforce because you want to make sure that the problems that you care about are the ones that are prioritized, and that the solutions that we arrive at are the ones that are going to work for you as well as everybody else. So there's kind of so many parts to why we want to improve that. And I just really encourage teachers to think about how important it is to open STEM and engineering and technology career pathways for all young people. They're they're well-paid careers without being dashed down to the nitty-gritty. They're 30% above average. So actually, you'll if you're not enabling all of your students to see a future there, you're limiting their opportunity, and they're well paid because they're in demand, and we know that they're just going to keep growing. And we know that the more that we create those career encounters and career conversations with young people, the more that they tune their career ambitions to where the workforce needs are. And that's Careers and Enterprise Company research is really clear on that. And that's what you need to do for your students. You need to make sure they're having a wonderful education, but also have something that is going to work for them in the future. Not everyone's going to go into engineering with technology. I know that, but actually it's just really sad, really, if not everyone has had that opportunity to see what it might mean. And it is a really open pathway. There are lots of routes in. I think people know this better now, but a few years ago, people would have thought, oh, you have to be, an A-grade student across all of them to be going into engineering and technology. That isn't the case at all. And there are vocational and technical pathways along academic pathways. We need lots of different people coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many opportunities now to consider different ways into the education, higher education, degree level apprenticeships and things like that being one. I know that for young people now, I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but I remember when I was at university, tuition fees I think were about £3,000 a year, and now you're looking at £10,000 a year. And if you could do a degree level apprenticeship, which I know many organisations do, my previous roles up in the northwest of England, are in and around Sellafield and the nuclear coast. So many organisations doing degree level apprenticeships, taking young people straight out of sixth form or sometimes even year 11 into apprenticeships and then onto degree level apprenticeships further down the line, earning while learning, and not then being 21 years old with £30,000 of debt hanging around your neck.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more than that, actually. As a mother of three.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
But also the employability you get from those technical and vocational. But I think people, again, had outdated perceptions, and we can see, we track these things, and that people are getting better and better, parents and influencers and teachers and employers, in valuing academic and, say, apprenticeship pathways much more equally. And actually loads of employers really are focusing in on apprenticeships because of the workplace setting and their employability, and you see really quite fast progression on people who've come through an apprenticeship pathway because they're tuned to the workplace rather than an academic setting. Academic pathway is still brilliant if that's the way people want to go, but just making sure people understand that breadth, especially because of the government announcements about really opening up those other routes more. Really interesting announcements at the Labour conference recently about having more young people on higher qualifications. Really don't really mind if they're academic or apprenticeships or higher technical qualifications, but trying to push that bar up across the board.
Yeah, well, I think that was the target, wasn't it? Was the 50% of young people to university target was scrapped, but it's two-thirds of young people on a higher level qualification via whichever route you happen to take. There are massive, such a variety. Oh, wow, that's amazing. I love that discussion. So that's tomorrow's Engineers Week 2025. Dare to discover, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that week progresses and exploring some of those resources and discussing that with members on the STEM community as well throughout the course of the week. But obviously tomorrow's Engineers Week has been going for a while now. And looking back on last year's event, we had tomorrow's Engineers Week 2024. What impact did it have, and how are you building on that this year?
Yes, so we test all of the content with our key audiences, and it's landing really nicely. We also design them from the principles we have around inclusion and careers content, making sure it's really contemporary, really good role models. So we know it works really well. So hopefully that continues this year. Last year, we reached over 55,000 young people. This year, we're hoping to reach over 60,000. So we obviously need people who've been with us before to continue to do so, and bring along some of your colleagues as well. And we also try and get a bit of amplification of the messages going on over social media. Last year we had about 600 social mentions going on. Those aren't all us at all. So we really appreciate that and encourage people to do that. The hashtag will be TE Week 25 this year.
You heard it here, folks. Hashtag TE Week 25. I'll make sure we get something out on ours as well. So finally then, I think for teachers who are listening, what's one simple, actionable thing that they can do tomorrow when they get into school to bring discovery and engineering into their classroom?
Obviously, get engaged for the Tomorrow's Engineers Week piece, but also reach out to local employers. And we work with loads of them who will know about Tomorrow's Engineers Week. So it might be they're looking for something to do to support it. They might support with STEM ambassadors to coming into classrooms and bring all the resources to life with their students. That would be fantastic. And starting to build relationship with those employers for workplace visits and things like that. That would be fantastic. It makes a huge difference. I would say, again, highlighting those skills and qualities that people don't necessarily think about as engineering, like the creativity, the teamwork, the problem solving, the iteration, the experimentation, the daring to explore, daring to discover. And then for teachers, I think there's just another thing that this is from me, but I would say role modeling yourselves interests when things go not quite as you like, when you're having a bit of a whiteboard moment, or just something that you planned isn't working as you had wanted it to. Instead of being worried or flustered, I'm talking to myself here as well, obviously, but being interested, like, oh, I wonder why that hasn't worked. I wonder if, let's think about how we can do it differently, or what might be stopping it working as we'd anticipated, or maybe we'll find a slinky over there, I don't know. But actually role modeling that interest, and that you don't get derailed if things don't go quite as you plan. But just get involved. And if you want any more information, just do reach out to us.
Hilary, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. It's inspiring to hear how Dare to Discover is going to give young people permission to be curious and creative and resilient, and how tomorrow's Engineers Week continues to open up exciting futures in engineering and technology. For those of you watching, you can get involved in tomorrow's Engineers Week 2025 by visiting EUK Education. Simply head there and then follow the links to tomorrow's Engineers Week, where you'll find free lesson plans, assemblies and films and everything to help you bring engineering into your classrooms. And we'd love to hear what your students create and join the conversation on social media. Use hashtag TEWeek25, and we will also be discussing tomorrow's Engineers Week in the STEM community. So thanks for tuning in. We hope you and your students feel inspired and dare to discover this November and go out and enjoy tomorrow's Engineers Week 2025.
Please do. Hope to see you there.